5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live. Coming to you live as Lichtman Live. Say what's up to the people, Dad.
Hey, I'm always glad to welcome our savvy, very smart audience.
Right.
Even asked me things like the Dorr Rebellion from the 1840s.
Oh, my God.
Actually made a little slip. They was asking me about Delaware, the Dorr Rebellion, although I got it right, was actually nearby in Rhode Island.
You're talking about our last episode.
Yeah.
In this episode, we will be covering President Trump
Live. And you know what we're going to do? What does Trump hate the most?
Fact-checking.
Fact-checking. We're going to do our best to fact-check Trump. And get this.
What?
What are Oval Offices, the kind of the highest level of presidential addresses to the nation? What are they typically used for?
Tell me.
Response to great crises, like the Los Angeles riots of 1992, or the 9/11 terrorist attacks, or terrible disasters like the Challenger space shuttle or Hurricane Andrew, or in response to major urgent episodes abroad, like the Gulf War, the Iraqi War, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, or sometimes very somber presidential announcements. Joe Biden's withdrawal from the presidential race in 2024, or Lyndon Johnson's withdrawal from the presidential race, even way more surprising and shocking, in 1968. This is something different.
Let me guess, he's just going to glaze himself up the entire time, talk about how great he is and how great this administration is and all that jazz. Am I right?
You hit the nail exactly on the head. It's
Bingo.
What I would consider the first Oval Office infomercial.
Oh.
You know.
That's a good one, Dad.
Thank you. I haven't seen anyone else call it that, but let's call it what it is. It is the first Oval Office infomercial.
Interesting.
You know, this is a guy who's already so horribly degraded the presidency.
Now, do you think there's any correlation to the fact that by law, Trump's Justice Department is supposed to release the Epstein files in 2 days, 48 hours? You think there's any correlation?
You know what? If I were a good detective, and I think I am historically, I would say I don't believe in coincidences. It is no coincidence that the Epstein files are supposed to be released no later than Friday. You know, whether that'll happen and whether we'll really get the full scope of the Epstein files, who knows? But this also comes on the heels of his disastrous response to the horrific shooting at Brown University and the awful murder of director Rob Reiner and his wife. It comes on the heels of an interview by his closest insider, his chief of staff, Susan Wiles, in which he absolutely trashes Donald Trump, the vice president, the attorney general, Elon Musk, policies of the Trump administration, really leaves nothing left standing. It comes on the heels of that as well.
Do you think this is maybe even a little, you could categorize it as a little bit of damage control by this administration?
I would term it a little bit differently.
Okay.
This is typical Trump deflection and distraction.
Gotcha.
That's what he is really good at. He's been good at that for over 50 years, not just as a politician, but as a businessman. So he's desperately trying to deflect and distract from what looks like, you know, in some ways a crumbling administration. I know you always say, we've said that before, and somehow he's like the cat that has 9 lives. He always emerges on his feet. Yeah. But maybe he's on his 9th life, you know?
Maybe.
9th life.
Do you think there's any way we can see something that we're not expecting, like declaring war on Venezuela tonight? Or do you think that's a little too far-fetched?
I think that's a little too far-fetched. Are we going to expect any humility and taking blame from Donald Trump, which would be, frankly, even more unexpected than declaring war on Venezuela?
Right. He's certainly going to justify, I think, tonight his actions so far, for sure.
Saving American lives, right?
And he's going to try to fearmonger us into thinking that, Venezuela is this great threat and try to convince us that any future action is justified because he's trying to save us from drugs and whatever rhetoric he's decided.
Whatever fabrication. We now learned that those boats weren't even necessarily headed for the United States. They may have been headed for Europe. Who knows? Since they've released no information justifying the strikes. It also seems that they were not carrying fentanyl, which is primarily responsible for deaths in the United States. The fentanyl is coming elsewhere, that they're more likely trafficking cocaine. And he's also made the absurd comment, I think he's now hit 25 boats, that every boat he hits saves 25,000 lives.
What? He said that?
So let's do the math.
Okay.
That would be 750,000 lives saved from overdoses. You know how many Americans actually died from overdoses last year?
Not that many.
72,000. So he's actually saving something like 670,000 lives above and beyond those who actually died.
And it's sad because, look, drug abuse and drug overdoses is a real problem in this country. And unfortunately, we're all tied into these drug boats and killing these drug smugglers. And it's like, unfortunately, I don't think any of this is actually going to help reduce drug use in America. I don't think any of this is going to reduce overdoses.
For how long have we been waging this kind of militaristic war on drugs?
Right.
At least since the Nixon administration. I would say even going back to the 20s and 30s and first drug laws. But we spent trillions of dollars on the war on drugs. And has it stopped drug addiction in the United States?
I think it's gotten worse, probably.
I always refer to one of my favorite but very tragic novels by William Burroughs, Naked Lunch, in which he says, as long as there is infinite demand, there will be supply. You cannot stop drug addiction by trying to cut off the supply. You cut it off at one point, it reemerges at another point. And even if you cut off foreign supply, which he's not even close to doing it, these drugs are going to be created in the United States. And like meth is already created in the United States.
Before we continue, we are monitoring the feed. Nothing has come up yet. We do have a quick ad to get to from our sponsor tonight, Aura.
Aura, we love Aura. Let me tell you something that should alarm all of us. I recently Googled my name and email address. What came up? Dozens of data broker sites claiming to sell my personal information, phone number, address history, even the names of my relatives. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry you never signed up for. Data brokers harvest your information without consent, then sell it to marketers, scammers, and yes, even political operatives. And while they're legally obligated to remove it if you ask, they make the process so confusing and tedious that most people just give up. That's why I use Aura. Aura identifies which broker sites are selling your info, automatically requests removal on your behalf, and follows up to make sure your data stays gone. But Aura goes far beyond that. It's real, all-in-one digital protection. You get alerts if your personal data is found on the dark web. Real-time fraud monitoring for your credit and banking accounts. A secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more. And if something goes wrong, you're backed by $5 million in identity theft insurance with U.S.-based fraud support available 24/7. And here's the most important part. Aura offers more features than any other service at its price. So while companies like TransUnion lose control of your data, Aura helps you take it back. Try Aura free for 14 days. Aura.com/Allan Lichtman. That's enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal info off these broker sites without you lifting a finger. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either.
All right. Thank you to our sponsor tonight, Aura. We are still waiting for the president. It is just past 9 o'clock here on the East Coast.
He's always late.
He's always late. Oh, here he is. Wow. Speak of the speaker, though, right?
Doesn't look good, does he?
Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before.
In 30 seconds, he's already issued a multiple of lies.
This happened during
54% said Trump is responsible for the economy, not Biden. Only a small fraction say Biden is responsible.
And because
inflation was lower at the end of the Biden administration
25
than it
million
is
people
right now.
Many
Wasn't that a 48-year high?
Mental institutions, and insane asylums.
Another lie that foreign governments are emptying their mental institutions and asylums. Undocumented immigrants commit crimes at significantly lower rates than native-born Americans.
Gotcha.
God, like half a dozen lies in 30 seconds.
Yeah, we might not even be able to keep up.
Never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody.
They're not
crime
men.
At record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world. But they're not laughing
Trump
anymore.
has the worst rating internationally of any modern president, except maybe himself in his first term.
Administration in American history. There's never been anything like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a
His approval rating is significantly lower than Joe Biden's at a comparable point in his presidency, by a wide margin.
And all he's been doing is glazing himself so far, like we said he was going to do.
Praising himself and baselessly attacking his predecessor.
American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities.
Corporate lobbyists from the previous administration.
I want to say, so far, has all been criticizing the Biden administration.
And all lies. He hasn't said one truthful thing.
They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent.
I repeat,
they caused
undocumented immigrants, and there are multiple studies on this, including one that Trump scrubbed from the Department of Justice website, documenting overwhelmingly that undocumented immigrants commit crimes, including violent crimes, at much lower rates than native-born Americans, and that overwhelmingly those that ICE under Trump have arrested either have no criminal convictions or criminal convictions for minor things like traffic offenses.
Illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said...
Did he just say that zero illegal aliens have been let into our country? There's no way that's true.
Of course it's not true.
And everyone else. As it turned out,
he's made all this up. This has been a complete fabrication, and the American people aren't buying it. You've been president for almost 11 months. You can't blame everything on Joe Biden, and 54% of Americans say you can't, and only a tiny fraction blame Biden.
Most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before, and they decimated the bloodthirsty
crime was
foreign
falling
drug cartels
dramatically in Washington, D.C. and cities across the nation before Trump sent in the National Guard.
And it's like how much freedom do we have to release to have these quote-unquote crime-free cities? It's
And they're
like,
not crime-free. That's a lie, too. Crime was still taking place.
Woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs. After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and
That's
it's not
been
even
true for
close.
decades.
I've restored
That's
American
nothing new.
strength,
Ronald
settled
Reagan
8
said we
wars in
built the
10
most
months,
powerful
destroyed the
military
Iran
in the
nuclear
early
threat, ended the
1980s.
war in Gaza, bringing for
And
the
it's been
first
true
time in
since then.
3,000 years peace to the Middle East. And
Settled
secured
8
the
wars,
release
a
of the
lie. That has
hostages,
been
both
debunked
living
time and again.
dead.
And the war in
Here at
Gaza
home,
is
we're
not
bringing
over.
our
The
economy
ceasefire is
back from
falling
the brink of
apart.
ruin.
And
The last
phases, all
administration
of
and
the
their
other
allies in
phases have not
Congress
been put
looted
into
our treasury
effect.
for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them
No,
down.
you're not. Prices
very
are going
fast.
up.
Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car
Okay,
prices
chill
rose
a little bit.
22%, and in
I wanna hear
many
a little
states,
bit what he's saying.
30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%. Airfares rose 31%. Now, under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the
All of
cost
that
of
is a lie.
groceries
Yes,
soaring.
early
But
on
we are
in the
solving that
transition
too.
from the
price of a
pandemic,
Thanksgiving
prices
turkey
went up
was
to about
down
9% inflation.
compared to
It
the
went down to
Biden
under
last
3%.
year.
It's now
The
gone
price of
up,
eggs is
not down under Trump.
82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly. And it's not done yet, but boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. Here are
You're right.
just some
Nobody
of the
believes it.
efforts
Your
that we have
approval rating
underway.
on the
You will see
economy
in your
in the
wallets
latest
and
polls
bank accounts in the
range
new
from
year.
31% to
After years of
39%.
record-setting falling
Way worse
incomes,
than
our
Biden's.
policies are boosting
Nobody
take-home
believes
pay
anything
at a
you're
historic
saying.
pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal.
These average
It's
wage increases are mostly
$3,300.
going to the
And for
rich.
first
The
time in
middle
years,
class
wages are
and the
rising
less
much
affluent
faster than
have had wages that did not keep pace with inflation under Trump. Only the very rich have benefited.
faster
More lies.
than inflation. How big is that? Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector. Think of that. 100% of all
It's
jobs
because
have
he's
been
fired
Yeah,
in
why?
all the
private
government
sector
workers.
rather than
Is that a
government,
good thing?
which is
Yeah,
the
it's a
only
terrible
way to
thing.
make
And
a country
What
powerful and
sector
great.
did he claim
This
was
historic
the big
trend will
surge
continue
for
already.
jobs under him?
I've secured a
Manufacturing.
Down 5,000 in the latest report, down 67,000 since April. 9 consecutive months under Trump in manufacturing jobs going down, not up.
He also said that more people are working now than any time in American history, but also the population of the United
Population,
States has
right.
risen. We're at the highest population at any time in the United
Right,
States.
and some 15 million Americans, under the latest study under Trump, have either just stopped looking for work because they can't find it or can only find part-time, not full-time work. That's 50 million Americans who can't find jobs or the kinds of jobs they need. And here he's
1 year
talking
ago,
about
our country was
manufacturing,
dead. We
down
were absolutely
67,000
dead.
since
Our country
April.
was ready to fail, totally failed. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next
Talk
year,
about
you will
anecdotal.
also see
Yes, every
the
single
results
leader.
of the largest tax cuts in
You have
American
the worst
history
approval rating
that were
across the
really
world than
accomplished
any
through our
president.
Great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped
More
12
sweeping than
different
Social
bills
Security,
up into one
the Civil
beautiful
Rights
bill.
Act,
That
the Voting
includes
Rights Act.
No tax
All
on
it did was
tips,
give
no
big
tax
tax
on
cuts to the
overtime,
rich
and no tax
crack
on
down on the middle class and the less affluent.
Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year.
Oh,
and
get
next
out
spring
No
is
way,
projected-
dude.
That's
Come
the
on.
millionaires and the billionaires.
Yeah, no, he says he said the average family will be saving between 11,000 and 20,000.
Absolute garbage.
Tonight,
Not even
I am
close.
also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend in honor
He loves
of our
paying
nation's
people off, right? You know, give them some chump change, even though the economy is in the tank. 70% of Americans, according to a Fox News poll, think things are getting worse, not
checks
better.
are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a
I
year
don't have
makes.
a
In
fact
addition-
sheet on that, but I suspect, like everything else he said, it's wrong.
Ending up to the special interest to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words,
Can't
your
reduce
drug
something
costs
more
will
than
be plummeting
100%.
downward.
That
And I
brings
used
it to
the threat
zero.
of tariffs to get foreign
Reducing
countries
it
who would
400
never
to
have done it
500%
to pay
is
the cost of this
mathematically impossible.
reduction.
That would
They
mean
stop ripping us
they're
off,
paying
and it
you
began
huge amounts
as
of money to
4
take their
days
drugs.
ago. There has never been anything like this in the
I mean,
history
that
of our
one you don't even
country.
need a
Drugs
fact
have
sheet on, do you?
Only gone
Just
up.
basic math.
But now they'll be going down by numbers
And
never
let's not forget,
conceived possible.
he opposed extending the Obamacare subsidies, which is going to mean our health insurance premiums are going to skyrocket, and people are going to be uninsured again or having to buy inferior insurance projects, far outweighing anything he might be doing on drug prices where we don't even know the result yet.
Taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you.
You
So they
put the
can buy
money to
their
the
own
people.
health-
Who do they still have to buy their insurance from?
Insurance companies?
Without any of the benefits.
Well, I think he's talking specifically about prescriptions right now.
I didn't think so. He's talking about health insurance.
Oh, okay.
He's talking about the health insurance companies.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, you take away Obamacare, then there's no protection for 40 to 50 million people with pre-existing conditions. You were on our...
Hold on. Let's listen to what he's saying.
Okay.
Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You'll get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich, and the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies. They will not be happy, but that's okay with me because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost. Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden, and the typical family
Electricity
lost
costs have
$5,000
risen
to
at a record pace since Trump took over the presidency.
$10,000 you lost. On day one, I declared
That's
a
all
national
made up,
energy
$5,000 to
emergency.
$10,000
Gasoline is now
higher
under
energy prices under
$2.50 a
Biden.
gallon in
That's
much of the
absolute
country.
nonsense.
In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants, a record.
There are
and it's
almost
a
no
record
states
won't
that
be
have those
beaten by
gas prices.
Practically, I would say by anybody.
This is a boring speech. You're just rambling a bunch of
It's
numbers.
absolutely rambling, has no coherency.
It's down 5,000%, and gas is $1, and it's just kind of
you're going to save 500% on your prescription
also robbed
drugs.
millions
They're
of
going to pay you.
Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream.
And people don't
The
want him
yearly
to be
cost of a
ragging
typical-
on Biden. Biden hasn't been in power for almost a year.
Right.
Tell us what you're going to do.
Oh, sorry. I got to unmute it.
It's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see the numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower
There's a
interest
tremendous
rates
housing
by a lot,
crisis under
and
Trump. I
mortgage
don't know
payments
what he's talking
will be coming
about.
down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this, in the new year I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the
Let's see,
colossal
he was president for
border
4 years. Now he's president for a year. What major housing legislation has he passed?
Well, he said he's going to be enacting some new ones.
Yeah, but my point is he's had 5 years. Why should we believe anything's going to come out next year?
You shouldn't.
allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole
Absolute
American
nonsense.
jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in
because
50
it's a lie.
years,
You can't mention it.
as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all
Unemployment
net
is now at the
creation
highest level in 4 years.
since I took office. 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens. 100%. In the end,
I don't
government
have a
Getting
fact sheet
that
on that,
number.
but that's
The
not
deserves
possible.
The productive,
He's saying no
patriotic, hardworking
naturalized
American
citizen has
citizen
ever
or-
gotten a job.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
There are tens of millions of them. Makes no sense. Just made that up.
Our
I mean,
nation.
I don't even need a fact sheet to refute
Right,
that. That's
right.
absurd. Just like a $500 reduction in your drug costs.
500%.
500% reduction in your drug costs.
The United States of America. And we're
Oh,
gonna
he's
put
gotta
an
be
end to it.
racist now and
For
go
so
after
long as
Somalians.
Before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every
Remind
system
me,
that
who
makes
was the only
civilized.
president impeached twice?
DJT.
Who was the only president indicted multiple times for felonies?
Donald.
Yes. But what has Joe Biden ever been impeached or indicted for anything?
No.
No. But he's corrupt and Trump is pure as the driven snow.
Yep.
Okay. I got it.
Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation
Prices
is
are
strong.
not down.
America
And
is
wages are only up
respected,
for the rich.
And our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen.
Oh, sure.
Soon we will
Doubt
host
it. I
the
doubt
World
it.
No
Cup and
hyperbole
the
from
Olympics,
Trump, right?
both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected.
The worst approval
before.
rating of any
To
president
each and
abroad.
every
You
one
said
of
that.
you,
You
have a
Come on.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
All right.
All right. That was the 2025 presidential address. It was almost exactly what we predicted. He blamed
Exactly.
Biden for pretty much every woe in the world. He said that everything good in the world is him. It was essentially a infomercial for himself. Pretty much exactly what we predicted. What's your take after hearing all that, Dad?
Utterly predictable and arguably by far the worst Oval Office address in history. You know,
In
Trump,
history?
I
You're
can't think
sure?
of one that's worse.
Okay.
You know, not only was it an infomercial, but he spent most of his time blasting his predecessor, right? Who hasn't been in power for 11 months. Right? You know, Trump takes responsibility for nothing. Correct?
Correct.
And he takes no responsibility for anything. He's even said, anything bad is Biden's fault, anything good is my fault. People did not want to hear a speech mainly ranting about someone who hasn't been in power for almost a year. They want to hear about the policies of Donald Trump that are helping ordinary Americans. And nor do they want to hear a bunch of lies about the economy, that, you know, prices are rapidly coming down when in fact, you know, they're going up, that, you know, manufacturing and jobs are roaring back. You know, the average number of jobs created under Trump is 23,000. Biden's last year, 164,000. You know, do the percentage there. It's so high, it's hard to imagine. Manufacturing jobs not gained, but lost. And rather than owning up to there's any challenge, there could be any blemish on the perfect Trump record, he just makes up phony statistics, phony data to try to convince the American people that this is the great golden age. The Americans are not buying it. 72%. And this is a poll from his beloved Fox News, Sam. It's not some lunatic Democrats.
Right.
Rate economic conditions negatively, only fair or poor. And Trump's approval on the economy in 3 polls ranges from a low of 31% to a high of 39%. He's not fooling the American people. And it's not just the economy. Here's again the Fox poll. Trump's approval rating on health care, 37%. And he's touting, you know, all these supposed phony health care initiatives. 37%. Government spending, 37%. On the tariffs, you know, that he is, you know, so lavishly praised, 36%. On America being so wonderful around the world, foreign policy, 42%. Even his signature issue, which he thinks, you know, is going to empower his base, you know, to great victories, 45%.
You know, I just don't understand. Even if you're a big-time Trump supporter, I don't understand how you can watch that speech and think that that was a good speech. I mean, you know, he was rambling about all this fuzzy math and numbers that no one's going to be able to follow. He didn't make any concrete promises. You know, the people were reporting that he was going to make, you know, all these promises for the next 3 years. Did he give a single concrete policy other than vagueness about being great and booming economy and
bringing prices down?
I mean, at what point do we as American people say, do something concrete, Trump?
Right. Or, you know, I'm going to have a great housing policy.
Right.
Well, he hasn't had one for 5 years. This is like, you know, we're going to have a health care, a way better health care program than Obamacare. He's had 10 years and he's had concepts. And this idea of just giving people money is absurd. They still have to buy their insurance from the insurance companies. And premiums are going to skyrocket without the Obama assistance. People with, you know, 40 to 50 million people with pre-existing conditions are either going to be denied coverage or have to pay skyrocketing rates. And children will not be able to stay on their parents' health care till they're age 26. That saved us, Sam, tens of thousands of dollars by having you on our program until you were 26 and helped you as a young person not having to pay these staggering insurance rates and get yourself established.
I think
all that goes by the boards. And, you know, he didn't give us a concrete health care program.
I think you hit the nail on the head with calling it a presidential infomercial. It pretty much was exactly like a late night infomercial, kind of rambling, long, a bunch of numbers and claims that seem like a bunch of BS. You hit the nail on the head with that one, Dad.
Thank you. I have to say, yes. could not have been more accurate. Trump has already, in recent days, so embarrassed the presidency, attributing the tragic murders of Rob Reiner and his wife to Trump derangement syndrome, making it all about him. This is after when Charlie Kirk was killed, saying, you've got to be respectful, you can't celebrate, you can't make it about you, and he does just the opposite. Responding to the tragedy, the horrible tragedy of the mass shooting at Brown by saying things happen. Same thing he said about the murder and dismembering by the leader of Saudi Arabia of the journalist who writes in America, who did before he was killed, Khashoggi. This isn't the first recent embarrassment. This is an embarrassment upon embarrassments, and in some ways, it may be the worst embarrassment because it was delivered in the highest profile possible for a president. The Oval Office address, and as I said, typically delivered for momentous reasons, not to deliver an infomercial. And even as an infomercial, it wasn't any good, was it? You're a media expert.
No, again, well, I mean, most infomercials are bad. And this was pretty close as you could get in politics to a bad infomercial. I don't think, like we've talked about many times, speeches don't move the needle in any direction.
No, they don't.
But this one certainly won't. I don't think any of his supporters are getting riled up by this. I don't think anybody who didn't like him is going to like him anymore. Kind of a waste of everybody's time, it felt like.
And you don't think anyone who's suffering from high prices or the inability to find a job is going to be comforted by this?
No, of course not.
Yeah. Can you pass me a drink?
We have 1,300 people watching, but only 300 likes. If you're currently watching, we'd much appreciate a like. It really helps us out a lot. It helps with the stream. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you know we're live. I want to give a shout out to some donators. Comic Fan, Diego. I think George Politis was in there with a big one. Yes, he was. Who is this? Ben Weinberg and Happy Valley Farms. Those are the donations I see right now.
Let me also say this. This is not going to distract and deflect from anything else.
No, definitely not.
Not going to, the Epstein stuff is going to have as much import as it did before this. This devastating Susan Wiles interview is not going to go away because of what Trump said tonight. He's not going to wipe out. He's not even any good anymore. He used to be great. He's not even good anymore at deflection and distraction.
Right, I sort of thought he was going to come out swinging with something crazy, but it's the same old Trump playbook. Blame somebody else, talk about how great he is, throw a bunch of numbers at you that you can't even comprehend.
Give us vague promises that mean nothing.
Night over.
Everything's going to be fabulous, May not be now, but just you wait. And the other thing, too, this also is a horrible commentary on Trump's staff.
Tell me why.
This was not Trump off the cuff, like in Pennsylvania where he was delivering a rally.
Right. It was sort of in between his more structured, like Oval Office State of the Union address speeches and a rally. It was somewhere in the middle, but it was sort of neither one.
But it was all on a teleprompter. In other words, this was crafted in advance. This wasn't just Trump speaking off the cuff. That's another reason why it's such a tragedy, that this is the best that his administration can come up with to deliver to the American people. Again, it's not just Trump off the cuff.
Yeah, that is a good point. And that's sort of what I was getting at. I thought they were something was going to come of a little bit more substance than that, or at least they would do something crazy, but it was just, like you said, they took all that time to craft that speech. Yeah,
which appeals to nobody.
Right, which appeals to essentially
It's not going to rile up the MAGA base.
Right.
Like when he does go off the cuff and, riff on Somalis and, whoever, piggy women or, all of that stuff. And it certainly isn't going to convince anyone who wasn't already a big Trump supporter. Not a person. I can't imagine anyone who isn't already a Trump supporter is going to be convinced. It's not going to alleviate the suffering of people who are being affected by high prices or can't find a job, and it's not going to rile up his base. It achieves nothing as far as I could tell.
Yeah, what a waste of everybody's time, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Questions?
No, I think we'll just wrap for the evening because we're going to be live tomorrow.
All right, we can get the questions tomorrow.
Yeah, if you guys have if you become a member, you can post a question in our membership post. A couple more donations from Mega Games, Corin, Ned. I think that's who I see here. But yeah, I don't think we need to spend any more time tonight. Like we said, pretty much a waste of everybody's time. We'll be live tomorrow with, more current events, questions, Q&A.
Yeah, you don't hesitate tomorrow to ask questions about this speech.
Yeah. Someone in the chat just said, Rob Law said, fact checkers are saying that there were 70 plus lies in the first 5 minutes alone.
We caught as many as we could, but it's Gish Gallop. He puts out so many lies. Even with us fact checking it instantly, we can't keep up.
Yeah.
How many lies? 70 lies?
Someone said 70 plus in the first 5 minutes.
That sounds about right.
And it's like, when you're watching it live and you're trying to comment on his lies, as you're talking about the last lie, he's said like 4 more in the span that you've been talking.
You just can't keep up with it. And again, it's not just a reflection on him. It's a reflection on his entire administration. It's a reflection on everybody around Trump that they would just put out the worst set of lies we've ever heard from the Oval Office.
They give...
Yeah, to quote Trump, you haven't never seen anything like this.
They give movies 5 stars or restaurants 5 stars or hotels 5 stars. That was like a half-star speech. Objectively, that was just such a terrible speech.
Yeah, if he had said, if he had given a good speech, we'd have recognized it.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a damn thing good about it.
To be fair, I don't know if he's ever given a great speech, to be honest.
But at least he's given speeches where you can understand the purpose.
Yeah.
I'm going to rally my base. I'm going to get them all riled up and excited. That's, Trump at his best. There wasn't a hint of that here. Nothing in this to rile up his base. What is that? 150?
Yeah, that's from George Politis.
Is that Australian?
Yes.
Oh, that's like $100.
He gets 5 stars for lying, and that is true.
That's true.
That is absolutely true.
They said 70 lies in the first 5 minutes.
Someone in chat said that. I haven't checked that. But,
but whatever. The number is astronomical.
President Khalidi said it was a negative 5-star speech.
I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
And, I've been willing to say, Trump is very effective at exploiting things like racism and sexism and xenophobia to stir up his base. There was nothing inspirational here to anyone. Nothing. No rhetoric, no Trump, being Trump. It was like a caricature of Trump.
Yeah, I'm sure. I wonder how even his allies are spinning this one, but I can't
they'll spin it, but it's not going to move the needle for him on anything. If anything, it might be negative, but it's certainly not going to jump his poll numbers or make people think, oh, the economy is a plus, plus, plus.
Right. All right, folks, with that, we will wrap up.
Anything else of interest in the chat?
No, nothing that I'm seeing tonight.
Well, thank you for listening to this special event.
Yes.
Or, as Sam put it, waste of all of our time.
I would say not so special event in the end, but we'll be live.
We called it in advance.
Yeah, we'll be live tomorrow night for our standard show. Thank you all very much, and
good night.